Imagine this for a moment. It's the year 1941. Europe is consumed by war. Across the Atlantic, tensions are rising fast, and military planners are already thinking beyond the horizon. In a design office in Hamburg, a bold idea is spoken aloud, an idea so massive it sounds almost impossible. Build an aircraft large enough to cross the Atlantic Ocean, launching directly from water, carrying enormous loads, unstoppable in size and strength. That was the vision that sparked one of the most ambitious aviation projects ever attempted, the Blohm & Voss BV-238. And if that company name sounds familiar, there's a reason. Blohm & Voss weren't originally aircraft builders at all. They were famous for constructing ships, powerful submarines, warships, and heavy naval vessels. Aviation was unfamiliar territory. But war has a way of forcing innovation, and hesitation was no longer an option. The German Air Ministry wanted something extraordinary, an aircraft with unmatched range, enormous carrying capacity, and a commanding presence in the sky. Blohm & Voss received approval to attempt what few believed possible, a giant flying transport fortress. Not just a seaplane, but a machine designed to move equipment, vehicles, and troops across vast distances, an airborne ship capable of operating on open water. The concept was breathtaking, a massive aircraft that floated like a vessel at sea, yet spread wings as wide as modern airliners. It was planned with 2 decks, room for crew quarters, cargo space, equipment storage, and even comforts like a kitchen area, complete with refrigeration. This wasn't simply built to fly, it was designed to become a long-distance giant of the skies. And what eventually emerged shattered every expectation of what a flying boat could be. But creating something this enormous was no simple engineering challenge. Chief designer Richard Vogt and his team had to abandon conventional thinking. Nearly every rule in aircraft design had to be rewritten. The body of the BV-238 wasn't shaped like a normal airplane fuselage. It was built more like a reinforced ship hull, strong enough to operate on rough open water. Its wings were so massive that maintenance tunnels were built inside them, allowing crew members to actually move through the wings during flight to inspect and service the engines. Yet while the design was groundbreaking, reality was brutal. Materials were scarce, Hamburg faced repeated bombing raids, construction was constantly under pressure, aluminum was precious, and every stage of production became a struggle. Even so, work continued. Additional versions were already being planned, V2, V3, and beyond, each intended to be larger, stronger, or more capable. But in the end, only one prototype would ever truly fly. Before we talk about its secret technology and incredible design features, let's understand just how gigantic this machine really was. The BV-238 stretched roughly 43 meters long, carried a wingspan of 60 meters, and weighed close to 100 tons. This wasn't just a flying boat, it was more like a floating runway made of aluminum, a sky-born leviathan, enormous beyond imagination. Naturally, that raises a serious question. How do you lift something that heavy into the air? The answer: raw power. The BV-238 used 6 Daimler-Benz DB603G liquid-cooled engines, each producing around 1,900 horsepower. Together, those engines generated more than 11,000 horsepower. And with that tremendous force, this giant could rise from the water with steady authority, not quickly, not aggressively, but powerfully. The BV-238 wasn't designed for speed or sharp maneuvering. It was built for endurance, a slow-moving giant cruising around 300 kilometers per hour, with a top speed near 350 kilometers per hour. Its true strength was range. It could travel nearly 7,000 kilometers, while still operating from water, taking off and landing like a ship transformed into an aircraft. But launching something this massive from water created one huge obstacle: drag and resistance. Engineers solved that problem with large side-mounted stabilizing floats that could retract hydraulically. This made the BV-238 one of the first giant seaplanes to avoid the heavy drag of fixed support floats slamming against waves. In simple terms, it became smoother, smarter, and far more efficient. Controlling it, however, was another challenge entirely. Hydraulic systems handled the heaviest mechanical loads, while other controls remained directly linked between pilot and aircraft. giving a more immediate response despite the plane's massive size. Then came one of its most impressive design details, its flaps. Unlike many aircraft of that era, where flaps looked attached as separate pieces, the BV-238's flaps were fully integrated into the aircraft's body, deploying smoothly as part of the wing itself. Clean, elegant, aerodynamically advanced. Everything about this flying giant followed the same principle: bigger, heavier, slower, but brilliantly engineered. And landing it safely required perfect trim and balance. Without it, even experienced test pilots struggled to keep the aircraft steady. To understand just how extreme it was, compare it to other legends. The famous Hughes H-4 Hercules had a wider wingspan, but barely flew. Japan's respected Kawanishi H-8K was battle-proven, but only about half its size. Even Blohm and Voss's own earlier flying boat, the BV-222, looked small beside the BV-238. Without exaggeration, the BV-238 may have been the most ambitious flying boat project of World War II, perhaps one of the boldest aircraft designs in aviation history. And hidden inside this giant machine were engineering ideas far ahead of their time, but impressive engineering alone could never protect the BV-238 from the harsh reality of war. By the time this giant aircraft was finally ready for testing, Germany's position in World War II was rapidly weakening. Resources were disappearing, fuel shortages were growing, factories were under constant attack, and projects that once seemed revolutionary were now viewed as expensive luxuries in a desperate fight for survival. Still, the BV-238 managed to do what many believed it never would. It flew, and when it lifted from the water for the first time, it proved something extraordinary. This enormous machine actually worked. Despite its unbelievable size, test pilots reported that it handled better than expected. It was stable in flight, remarkably balanced, and surprisingly manageable for an aircraft so massive. For a moment, it looked like Blohm and Voss had achieved the impossible. But that moment would not last. Military priorities had changed. Germany no longer needed giant transport aircraft built for long-range missions. What it needed were fighters, bombers, and weapons that could immediately influence the battlefield. Huge experimental aircraft no longer fit that reality. Then came the final blow. In 1944, while stationed on a lake during testing operations, the BV-238 was discovered by Allied reconnaissance. Soon after, aircraft were sent to destroy it before it could ever become operational. Strikes hit the giant flying boat hard. Its massive frame was left shattered, broken, and burning on the water. The dream of the world's largest flying boat reduced to wreckage before it ever had the chance to prove what it could truly do. And just like that, the legend ended almost before it began. Only one prototype was ever completed. The additional versions that had been planned, improved models, stronger variants, expanded designs, never moved beyond paper, unfinished parts, and unrealized ambition. Yet the story of the BV-238 didn't disappear. Because what makes this aircraft unforgettable isn't combat history, it's what it represented. It was a machine built without compromise, an engineering project driven by bold imagination rather than limitation. A design so ambitious that even today it feels almost unreal. Think about it, a 6-engine flying boat, large enough to carry enormous cargo, built with internal wind tunnels, advanced hydraulic float systems, multiple decks, crew living space, and ocean crossing range, all created in the middle of World War II. That's not ordinary engineering, that's vision on a monumental scale. In another timeline, without war, without destruction, without collapsing industry, the BV-238 might have changed aviation history. It could have become the foundation for giant transoceanic cargo aircraft, luxury flying ships, or a completely different path in long-range air travel. We'll never know. What remains is the legend, a forgotten titan of the sky, an aircraft so enormous, so daring, and so far ahead of its time that it still captures the imagination decades later. The Blohm and Voss BV-238 was not just a plane. It was proof that human ambition can build monsters of metal and teach them to fly.